All right, it is primary day tomorrow in Maryland and in D.C. Congressman Ron Paul, Republican nominee, is on the phone with us now. Congressman, good to have you on again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
All right, you often talk about the Constitution. I want to get your response or your thoughts on what happened at the Supreme Court last week. Do you have any feelings one way or the other, or whether or not the Supreme Court will strike Obamacare down?
I consider that whole thing going on right now as more minor than other people do because, they'll probably knock some of it down, but I don't think it's going to have a lot of meaning because they've been undermining the Interstate Commerce Clause for 50, 60, even 70 years. So they're not going to throw the whole bill out. And there are so many problems. If you look at the hundreds of things they do in the name of the Interstate Commerce Clause, the one thing they ought to be talking about, which would really give me encouragement, if we had a case before the Supreme Court and found out that you ought to be allowed to trade insurance policies interstate. The Interstate Commerce Clause was designed to allow trade between the states, but they always use it to inhibit or do things they shouldn't be doing. And unfortunately, we're not talking about legalizing the sale of insurance in between the states.
But it sounds like your feeling is that they may strike the individual mandate down, but they're not going to throw away the whole bill.
No, they're not going to. And if they do it, somebody's going to declare a political victory. But I would like to see a lot better understanding of the Interstate Commerce Clause. I don't think that's going to happen. But, if they get rid of the mandate, that's a big deal. That would be very helpful and a move in the right direction. But it doesn't solve our problem of what has been taught generation after generation in at least the 20th century, how we're supposed to use the Interstate Commerce Clause. They use it in an opposite manner. They use it to regulate instead of to deregulate.
All right, Congressman Paul, so you're no doubt on today because you got the D.C. and the Maryland primaries that are coming up and all that. But as we look at the way things stay right now, you're going to have a hard time securing the nomination. And so the question, I know you're ready for it because it comes, I guess, a lot for you, is what is the purpose of staying in if you can't clinch the nomination? Is it strictly to have a conversation with Republicans about what they stand for?
Well, it seems strange that if there's a campaign going on and there's no winner that you should just say, fold your tent and leave. We haven't even counted the delegates. There's a lot of states where the process is ongoing. So I think we should wait and count the delegates and then make a decision.
But you can't get to 1144, can you?
Probably not. But we don't know what in politics. There's a lot of unusual things happen, and there's been a lot of ups and downs, and it's unpredictable. But I think it's still important to try to get people to talk about the things they ought to be talking about, just to everybody unify around a candidate and not have a debate on important issues like why is it that the Republicans are determined to expand the military operations overseas when 75% of the American people now want us to get out of Afghanistan? Somebody ought to speak up for the Republicans. Republicans, just think we elected Eisenhower to get out of Korea. Nixon was essentially elected to try to end that Vietnam War, and here we're trying to boost up the war, and the American people are sick and tired of it, and we're broke, and we can't even afford it, and we're supposed to be the conservatives.
Well, as you look
I think that deserves a discussion, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
So as you look at the front runner, Mitt Romney, what's the biggest bone that you have to pick with Mitt Romney?
Well, that he and I probably don't see eye to eye on foreign policy, monetary policy, or the budget.
All right, and so you think it's worth staying in to sort of make those arguments?
Yeah, and have a role. And get delegates and participate in the race. Certainly.
Paul Ryan put out a budget the other day, and it supposedly could possibly balance the budget in 10 years. Is that something you could get behind, or does it not go far enough for you?
Well, I think your number's wrong. My estimation is that it's going to take 30 years, and it might be balanced, and it wasn't designed. No, it doesn't go anywhere. This is deception because my plan is to cut $1 trillion out of the budget. We have a debt crisis worldwide, and we're trying to solve it by spending more. And the proposed cuts are usually just the cuts on the proposed increases. So he actually increases military spending in this bill, and doesn't do anything to remove the emergency powers to spend when you need it, but it doesn't cut any agencies. So there's no significant desire. Conservatives just think of what Cheney said. Ronald Reagan taught us that deficits don't matter, and that's a supply side attitude. Deficits do matter. That's why the world's in a crisis, and that's why there's so much fighting and bickering going on in Washington, and nobody can come together because all we have is debt. And anytime you spend money, you have to borrow the money. And if we put our head in the sand and we don't admit this, as conservatives, I can't understand how we can appeal to people who want less government.
All right. So if obviously you differ greatly on foreign policy. You clearly don't think that Paul Ryan's budget, which most Republicans put up on a pedestal as, hey, this is the way to go, this is what we need to campaign on in 2012. If you don't think that even comes close to going the right way, can you support the nominee, whoever it is, that comes out of the Republican fight?
No, I haven't decided.
Yeah, that's a pretty key question. So you're staying in because you want to have the discussion.
Well, we have to stand. I want us to stand for something. For 50, 60 years, we changed parties, but we never changed policy. The foreign policy, Obama, was supposed to change policy when Bush ran. He ran against nation building and being the policeman of the world, and yet he went and did it more than anybody else, and exploded the deficit, expanded the Department of Education, expanded Medicare, with prescription drug programs. The people I talk to, and I do talk to a few, if you come to our campuses, you'll find out that there are thousands, if not millions, of people who don't believe in this. So if you think there's going to be a change without a change in policy, and the policies are so similar, which Republican, other than myself, would really look into the Federal Reserve bailing out big business and banks and foreign banks to the tune of $15 trillion? They create the money. This is a big issue.
But you have so many followers, and they're willing to go with you if you decided to run on your own or if you decided to back somebody else. Look, it's probably going to be Mitt Romney. If it's not Mitt Romney, it's probably going to be Rick Santorum. So we have a pretty good idea who the nominee will be. When would you make that decision? What information do you need more of in order to decide on who you would support, or if you would perhaps get in as a third party candidate?
Well, after the votes are counted.
Okay, so once it's all said and done, then you'll sit back and make the decision.
Yeah, sure. Why do it now in the middle of a race? I have a lot of campaign events. I'll be very, very busy in California this week, and we're going to have big turnouts in places where no other Republican can go. I'm going to go to Berkeley, and there's an appeal. Republicans are, it's tough in the Republican base that where so many don't have a lot of concern about, civil liberties and privacy and the Patriot Act and assassination and arrest by the military. But there's a lot of people, you have to reach out to more people than the Republican base. And when you put my name up against Obama, quite frankly, I do every bit as well as does as Romney against Obama. Yeah. So I would think that there's some very significant debating yet to go on.
All right. Well, Congressman Paul, we greatly appreciate you joining.